So here we are. I suppose that you already installed Python successfully and you installed PyCharm or some other code editor, but now it's time to make our first Python project, first Python application. In this video I will use again PyCharm, and this is what you will get once when you started and open application. This is one welcome window where you need to just pick to create new project. I already create my project and I will click here, but let me show you what you will get. You need to put focus only on file location, nothing else. Forget everything else. We will come to that virtual environments later. Just pick location and you are good to go. Once when program open, you will have by default open this main.py file, and so far you can simply do this and close it. So guys, let's make our first Python application which will calculate how much money we spend each month. So we will call this application expenses, of course. Go here on this folder, click right mouse and pick Python file and call this file however you want. I will call it expenses.py. Only important thing when you create any file related to Python is that you put this .py extension on the end, otherwise it will be recognized a little bit different than Python. Before we begin, let me show you first some basics of Python. In PyCharm you here have this tab called Python console. You can open it very simple, click on it, or you can go start run command prompt and do the same thing, typing Python. You will get the same interface. If you are in command prompt, you exit when you are done with function quit, and then you are out. But if you have some code editor like PyCharm, VS Code, you will have Python console integrated inside. What's great. So what Python can do? We can calculate numbers. We can multiply numbers. We can divide numbers. We can do whatever we want in math. But all this is useless if we cannot store this data. And to store this data, we use something what's called variables. You see, when you want to make some comment in Python or some other codes, but in this case specifically in Python, you put this sign here at the beginning of the line, same one what you use for hashtag on Instagrams, and type what you want to remind yourself or someone else, and put something important for specifically this code. So let's talk about variables. What are variables? Variables, we can call them containers which store some data which later in our code or application we can pull, request and use anytime we need it. Why is this good? It's good because once when we store some data, we don't need, in case we change this data, change it everywhere in our code. We simply change it where it's defined in variable, and the rest of the code we pull just the name of variable. Let me make this more clear. Let's make application, in this case, our monthly cost. So we have what? We have cost of rent, and this variable will be called rent. And we pay rent each month 500 of something. So I put value of 500, and this is number. In Python it's called integer, to be stored in a variable called rent, like you see here. I can also put, for example, just that you understand, that type of property I pay is apartment. So that means I store some value which contains letters, words. So this is string. But in this video we will put focus only on integers or number. Also there are other kind of data type, can be floats, you know what's float, 1.99 something, or can be boolean. This is when we defined is something true or false. But of course we just write true or false. We cannot define both. So is something true, is something false. So let's continue with our program. We have rent. every month we also pay something what it's called utilities. And it costs, let's say, 150 something. We have some daily costs, which we monthly pay 120 something. And we have many other costs, which we pay, let's say, 110 something. Like you see, all these variables are very easy to understand what they mean. So there is a rule how you should name variables. They should be meaningful and easy to understand. If you, for example, want to name rent to be R is 500 and U is 150, if some person after you start to read this code, he will think this is radius or I have no idea. So point is, make variable names to be meaningful, very easy to understand for everyone, not only for you. So now when we have some values defined and stored in variables, we can simply do like this. Let's say, calculate how much is all this together. So I can do 500 plus 150 plus 120 plus 110. When I run the script, I will get result 880. So what's the point of variables then? This is not the way how to do it. I will calculate rent plus utilities plus daily costs plus other costs. And I will run this again. And I see result is the same. And to make it more clear, I will say print that this is monthly costs for January. And when I run this, I will get one huge error. Why? Because this value, like I just showed you before, is string. And all strings must be written in quotes, double quotes or single quotes. So now when I run this, I will get the same result, but before that I will have just defined that this is monthly cost for January. But let's play a little bit more. Let's multiply this 2 more times. And let's change this January to February. And let's change this in March. And it will be very stupid if all this is the same. So let's say that in February my rent jumped to 550. I save a little bit and my utilities 110, daily cost 100 and other cost 90. And in March rent is the same, utilities are again 150 or let's say 160, that you don't think it's something duplicated here. And here we can say the daily costs are 150 and other costs are 120. What do you think? When I run this program now, what will happen? What do you think what will happen? Why I'm asking you this? I'm asking you this because we have the same variable here, here and here, but with different values. Okay, rent, it's repeat in February and March. But for example, utilities 150, 110, 160 and all others are not the same. So what will happen? Let's see. I run it and I get 3 different results. And February is extremely expensive because other costs are 900 something. It's not mistake. So what do you think? Why this happens? Well, it's very easy to understand. Python start to read code from top to bottom and start to execute commands exactly how they are written. So this variable is 500, utilities 150, so on, and now he get to line where he need to execute something. And how will Python execute this? With values he have stored in variables. And in this case, all is correct. When you calculate everything what you have stored in variables, result would be 880 like it's here. But when he continued to read code, then he get command to change value in variable he already have stored. So he will simply change variable, and after that he will again come to part of code where Python need to execute something. And of course then we will get another result. And the same thing is for the march. See? So what you have to learn, remember and understand in this lesson. First of all, we have different type of data. And in this case, we put focus only on integers. On other videos, we will talk about strings, floats, booleans, and so on, how to combine them, and many other things. When we calculate something in our code, it's very important that we have some data stored in variable. And variable are, let's call them containers, where we store some data which we can use and insert later in our code. And it's a great thing because if we, for example, play now with this code and want to write something else where some value of rent will be constant or daily cost will be constant, but in one moment we put it in many places in the code and want to change it on each location, it's easier just to change it in variable. This is a very specific case because I just want to show you how Python works and how he changes values in variables. But usually this is not the way how you're going to code, because once when you store one data in your code, you will keep it there and just reuse it where you will need later in your code. Also notice that the way how we name variables are all lowercase, and if we have more than one word, we connect them with underscore. So all variables should be lowercase and multiple words should be connected with underscore. So guys, now you have task. You simply make variables for days in the week. And for each day you put how many hours you plan to study and learn Python. And after that, calculate first week in month, I learned Python for how many hours. Second week in month, I learned Python for how many hours, and so on for one full month. As this is so easy project for you to make, I won't explain you how to do it. Just do it to exercise and understand how to store data in variables. So see you next video when we will talk about a little bit more deeper topic which is related to variables and different data type.